Let's start the session. Here is what I want to do. I've made a checklist of 5 items which I want to discuss. I will not take more than 10 minutes. I'll quickly discuss what quickly put forth what I want to say. And then mostly I would be taking questions from you and trying to answer. Okay, so here is a quick analysis of where we are in the curve. Uh, we have about 114 days left for the exam. We have 69 readings. That leaves us with about, okay, let me finish the math. Now, out of those 114 days, I'm going to assume that there would be about 4 days, where we would not be able to study for whatever reason. You're probably sick or something is going wrong in the office. So we are focusing on 110 quality days out of it. Now, out of those 110 quality days, we want to use last 20 days only for revision and mocks, which basically means we are left with about 90 days to finish the entire FRM Part 1 curriculum. Now, I'm sure you guys know this, that we have 69 readings in your curriculum and total 90 days, which basically mean that we roughly have about 1.30 days per reading. And trust me, that's not good enough for certain readings in the curriculum, which can be really large, which do require a lot of concepts. Okay, so there are a few strategies that I have in place, a few strategies that I want to discuss that might help you optimize and plan your studies better. Okay, so I'll start discussing them one by one. First one is about those 20 days that I discussed. So we need those 20 days before the exam for revision and for mocks. Okay, and if you're a full-time working professional, I would strongly encourage you to apply for your leaves now. We still have sufficient notice for your employers. What we'll be doing in those 20 days, you would be attending one crash course with me. We would be doing 7th full-length mocks, and we would primarily be working on our mistakes in those mocks. So you write questions, you understand where things are going wrong, and you keep on working on your mistakes. So that's point number one. Save those 20 days for yourself. Second, uh, I'm getting a lot of emails from online candidates. See, what's happening to them is some of them start with book one. Let's say they read some theory topic, and while reading it, they come across a concept of basis risk. Now, basis risk is explained in book three. And that's the problem with FRM, right? It's not very neatly organized. So what I recommend FRM candidates is to do their studies in layers. What do I mean by that? You do first reading of the curriculum or video watching, and there would be a lot of pieces that you feel I don't understand. And what you simply need to do is let them go. Just put a mark somewhere, use those flags, and just let them go. And then do a second round of revision. And when you do it for the second time, you realize that your learning is substantially better. And then you do it for the third time, right? So instead of just trying to achieve 100% in the first reading, if you break it into smaller parts, your learning is going to be better. The third thing I want to discuss is the formulas. Now, by this time, if you guys have started studying, you must have realized that there are a lot of formulas to deal with. Now, if you're watching our videos, many of those formulas are converted to concepts, logic, so it's easier. But even then, we have to remember formulas. Exam में काफी question are purely plug and play. Like there are many questions on the exam where they'll give you numbers. There's a formula. You need to know the formula. You put in the numbers, you get the answer. Okay, so what you can do with this is on FinTree LMS, we have those formula review videos. They're not more than 5 or 6 hours. So you can make watching these videos a monthly ritual starting from now. So you would end up watching them 3 or 4 times. And while you're watching the video, make a list of the formulas that I have discussed in those videos. Probably put a list on your wall, like make a nice poster out of it, put it on your wall, and try to revise every day. Okay, so that we do not miss out on those easy questions on the exam. Then fourth point I wanted to discuss is the low hanging fruits. What do I mean by that? if you're doing a particular reading, there might be certain learning outcomes which are too difficult to comprehend, but there are other parts of the reading which are easier. So what happens is that because of those one or two learning outcomes, candidates somehow decide that I am not going to do this reading at all, which is clearly a mistake. So in every reading, there are low-hanging fruits, easier concepts, easy questions. So even if there are two, three, four learning outcomes in a reading which you feel that I can't handle this is too difficult for me, it's perfectly okay to let them go. So instead of giving up on entire reading, it makes sense for you to give up on those learning outcomes within the reading. Okay, so that's the general strategy. And of course, the point five that I wanted to discuss, and probably the most important point, is that if you're only reading notes, for example, you're only reading, let's say, Juice notes or Kaplan notes, or you're watching videos, and if you're not practicing, that's a recipe for disaster. Practicing is as important as learning. In fact, you learn more when you practice the questions. So a general rule that you follow is at least 30% of your study time every day should be spent on question solving. Okay, so we have provided variety of questions for FRM part 1. If you open your LMS, there are monthly tests available. Then if you open the Q&A section of the website, we have plenty of practice questions there. So try to watch as many as you can, try to practice as many questions as you can so that you are in a comfortable level for the exams. All right, so that's it. That's what I wanted to discuss. Now I'm going to take some doubts on this. And if you'd like to ask anything, just put them in the chat box. I'll try to answer them. Guys, just put your queries in the chat box. If you have anything, I'll try to answer them. All right, I've got the first question. Tej, can we join FinTree only for quantitative analysis? I'm having some problems in that subject only. Uh, Tej, I'm not really involved in the sales part, but I think you can, but I'm not sure. I think the best way to do it is write an email on admin@fintreeindia.com. So my team will try to answer your queries. Okay, what else? Hi, Monisha. Yes, the video will be available on YouTube for offline view later. All right, that's a great question. Question Mithil asked, are the Jorian questions good enough for practice? Yes, Mithil. That's a good starting point. Now, Philip Jorian has written the handbook and it has those practice questions in between. Those are really high quality questions. There are about 60 to 80 questions per subject. Okay. But these questions are not reading wise, they're subject wise. I mean, they are broken down into larger concepts. So I would strongly encourage you to practice Jorian and also practice the questions in the John Hull book. Okay, so if you take the John Hull book, both the risk management book and the derivatives book, at the end of the reading, he's given plenty of practice questions. If you practice them, you are going to be really confident with the FRM curriculum. Vishal has asked a question. Can I suggest whether we should read FRM curriculum book or should we read some third-party prep books? Uh, so Vishal, again, uh, see the problem with reading any third-party material, including FinTree, is that uh, our job as a prep provider is we want to save your times, we want to limit the size of content that's available. Correct? So we would choose very carefully in terms of what to put there and what not to. Um, if you have time, reading core material is always recommended. It's a really good quality material to read through. The only difficulty is too verbose. So probably a very good strategy is if you have access to my videos and you do juice notes along with it, it will cover more or less everything that's there in the core material. So that way you would be covered. But of course, if you don't have access to videos, there's no offense in reading core reading. They would definitely be helpful. Okay. Next question that is being asked is what is the sequence to be followed? So in terms of sequence, uh, I prefer, I recommend candidates to start with financial markets and products. I think that's a more logical way of learning the curriculum. After that, I recommend them to go to valuation and risk models. Now, in valuation and risk model, you can leave those first three or four VAR readings. Don't do them at the beginning. Just do everything else. So, if you think of this, FMP and VRM as a whole is nothing but more or less derivative and fixed income. So it's very logical progression if you do it that way. Then you do quant, and once you have done quant, then you can do those var related readings, so that ways it will be more organic. And then towards the end you can do those foundations theory material. This is a more organic sequence to FRM part 1 rather than following the way it is listed in the GAR curriculum. All right, I hope I answered your question. Let me take a couple of more. Sumit is asking, is it a good time to start now? I have taken the exam in the past and I was not able to make through. Okay. Um, Here's how I think of this. On an average, if you think that you can put in about 400 to 500 hours for an average candidate, I think that's a reasonable time frame to prepare for FRM Part 1. It's slightly conservative, maybe. So we have 114 days left. One simple math could be if you can do about 4 hours a day. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Or alternatively, if you can break it down into how much time you can invest on weekdays and weekends, and if your total comes to 500, I think that's a reasonable framework. So you strategize accordingly, but I think it's doable. And considering that you've taken exam once in the past, uh, which means you know a little bit of the curriculum, so I think it should be doable. Okay, let's take some more questions. Uh, Shresh has a question. Is saying, having passed CFA level 1 in 2018, do you think I should stress upon reading curriculum or some again third party books would be sufficient? All right, Shresh, the third party books that you've listed there, I don't think they're very comprehensive. Uh, they're more to be seen as notes rather than learning material. Uh, so alternatively, what I would suggest is you stick to the core readings. And if you think core readings are too much, you get the Kaplan notes. I think those are better alternatives. Another question that's being asked is, do we have to be good with integration? Because there is a third-party prep provider who has a lot of questions on integration. Uh, Again, I don't think so. Every year we get hundreds of candidates here at FinTree who do not know how to integrate an equation, but they still manage to pass. See, I always say this, if you know integration, that's always useful, but it's not mandatory. You'd be perfectly okay if you don't know it. Worst case scenario, you might lose out on one or two questions on the exam, if at all they are tested. So it's fine if you don't know the maths part of it, you should be able to handle. Okay. Tanvi has asked a question. Does FRM Part 1 have any case study type of questions? Not to my knowledge. Uh, I don't think FRM Part 1 will have a case study and questions. Part 2, yes, there will be questions. One case study and maybe two or three questions based on them. FRM Part 1, no. I think, at least to my experience, every question is independent by itself. All right, we're getting a lot of those questions now. What else do we have? Sorry. Aryan has asked, how can we revise and retain what we've learned for the part 2 exam because it is more extensive? Aryan, I'll be doing a separate session on FRM part 2 very soon. So probably you can ask that question on that particular day. Uh, Someone is asking, how is Havel's practice question? Sumit, that's a scam. Uh, I mean, at least to my knowledge, I have never heard of a prep provider with the name Havel's. Uh, I know that these guys are selling their questions on Amazon. So last time we ordered one. And we realized that they had simply copy pasted questions from some other sources and posted in their books. So try not to buy them. There are plenty of other question banks available in the market. Uh, Sumit, not recommended. I'll avoid using anyone's name, but yeah, I would not recommend getting access to that particular content. Someone has asked whether we have juice notes for FRM Part 1. Yes, we do. We do have juice notes, and I'm really proud of how they have come up. I think I'm sure there are, I think, a sample available on FinTree websites. You can go and download that. I'm sure you'd enjoy the work that we put in there. Vishal has asked whether FinTree weekly test is enough for practice. Yes, it is. Okay, I'll probably take one last question before I call it a day. Um, if you would like to ask anything. uh, Tej, no. First part of Tej asked whether live sessions for Quant are still available at FinTree. No, the first part is already done. We have some sessions left on regression and time series, but I think you'd be better off just doing it online. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you found the session useful. Whatever comments you have, and my apologies for starting late. We just couldn't figure out the technology part of it, but we'll be careful next time. If you have any feedback about how I can do the sessions in future, you can just put them in the comments box. I will try to answer and address that in my subsequent session. So wish you all the best, study well, and remember my 5 points, especially the fifth one, practice a lot. All the best. Okay, I don't know how to end this now. Just give me a minute. I feel like I'm technologically illiterate here. Get someone's help. What should I do now?